and welcome to Faith and Prayer with Donna. I'm very honored today to have a special guest, my daughter, Laura. And it's just a privilege, believe me, to have wonderful children. I've been so blessed. All 5 of our children are such a blessing, not only to their dad and me, but to each other and to other people. And I'm glad to say they all love the Lord and serve Him. Even though one's kind of taking a little detour, but that's not going to last. He's coming back. So Laura lives here in San Antonio. And do you want to tell a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I've been married to my husband, Mark, for 32 years, and we have 5 children. Our 3 older children are boys, and they're married and have lovely wives and have already given us 4 grandchildren between the 3 of them. And then we have 2 daughters that are not married and one still at home. And we run a wedding venue here in San Antonio.
She does, and she's also been in a battle, a health battle. Our family's been very blessed for decades with wonderful health. And this is one of the first serious health issues I think any of our children have had. When our son Tori went over to Afghanistan as a missionary, when he was 21 or 22, he was at the Air Force Academy up in Colorado Springs, and he and 2 other cadets decided they wanted to go to Afghanistan. Now, he graduated, he would have been in the class of 2005, graduating from the academy, but since they took a year out of that, those 3 did, Ryan and Felicia and Tori went to Afghanistan as missionaries. And when they came back from there, he was so sick. We were in much prayer for him because he'd contracted some disease, and I've never seen him look so sickly, just as so skinny, and his skin was yellow and everything. And there was a lot of prayer. And the Lord told me to fast for him, and I started on a Friday and Saturday because he had to get back to the academy and take the physical to be, able to return to the academy, and this was the beginning of his junior year. And it was quite a battle, and I broke my fast. I fasted for 3 days, I think, and he was getting stronger and eating better, and then I broke the fast just because I got hungry, and I thought, well, he's mending, and I should not have done that. I disobeyed the Lord, the Holy Spirit, and he got sick again immediately. And he was told me one day in this few days he had there, he was out walking, and the Holy Spirit said to him, your mother needs to fast. And so he came home and told me, and I'm telling you, I repented. When you do something that you're not supposed to do, and the Lord told you not to do, or you don't do something He told you to do, you need to repent. And I just, because I like to, have my lunch and my dinner, when he started getting so well after about 3 days, I just, actually we were over at Mark and Laura's house, and they had pizza, and I went upstairs so I wouldn't smell it, but it overcame me. I should be ashamed to say that, but I did it. And I went downstairs and ate pizza, and then he started getting sick again. And I'm not saying God does that with everybody, but I've known him a long time, and he's known me before I was born. He said, I knew you in your mother's womb, to a prophet or something, that he expects me to obey him. And if he doesn't, I have some consequences. And so I repented, and as I fasted, my son got well. And he doesn't do that with everybody, but he did it with me. So anyway, this is Laura, and she's been such a blessing to our whole family, and of course to Mark, her husband. And they have 3 of their own children. They're boys who are all married, and then they adopted 2 sisters it's been 10 years. I think they were 7 and 10, and now they're 17 and 20. And it's been a...
Anyway, I think where you were going with the health thing was that we've always enjoyed a lot of health in our family.
Yes.
And that last year the cancer diagnosis came, and it was kind of a shock to all of us, because we've always been healthy and been thankful for that. So
Laura had some nodules on her, cancerous nodules, and her whole stomach was removed in August. And I believe that she's going to get a new stomach. But where the esophagus and the small intestines join now, I have been praying, Lord, I believe that's where the new stomach will come. But I'm saying, let there be the function of a stomach there, the function of a stomach. And I mentioned this to her a week or so ago, and she said, Mom, actually, you're able to eat a little bit more.
Right. Do you want me to back up and tell
Sure.
a little bit from the beginning?
Please.
So it all started, it's been over 2 years now. I just had a random episode of acid reflux, heartburn, and it was very painful. And then some time after that, some weeks later, I started noticing it was kind of difficult for my food to go down when I would eat. And then I had another episode of heartburn, and there was some months in between each episode, but then there was less time as the episodes grew in frequency, and it became more and more difficult for my food to go down. And it was about at the point where I was ready to call and make an appointment to go see the doctor to say what's wrong with my esophagus, because I would eat my first bite of a meal and my second bite, and then by the third bite it was all stuck here, and I was running off to the bathroom and everything was coming back up. So then about the same time that I was ready to call and get a doctor's appointment, COVID hit, and I couldn't get an in-person doctor's appointment. I finally got a phone consult. They said, well, you probably just have inflammation from the acid reflux. Take Prilosec. Well, I had a bad reaction to the Prilosec. I didn't really want to stay on that long term. And so I was trying to control the heartburn just with taking Tums or drinking some cold water, but it was getting increasingly harder and harder to eat all the time. And so time had passed, and now I was finally able to get an appointment to have what's it called, where they take the camera down, and anyway, so
Something scopy?
yeah, an endoscopy. Thank you.
Okay.
So thank you. And so you're kind of under an anesthesia for an endoscopy, and when I was coming up out of the anesthesia, the doctor was standing over me, and she said, Mrs. Schlotfeldt, I think you need to go right away to radiology and have a CT scan. She said there was an ulcer actually in the junction between my esophagus and my stomach.
Goodness.
And she said, I think it's cancerous. And I was still groggy from the anesthesia, and I said to my husband, did she just say cancer? And he said, yeah. And so I went the next morning, had the CT scan, and then the following week she called and said it was confirmed that it was adenocarcinoma. And they had me in... I've received excellent care over at BAMC. We're very thankful for that. And they had me in to chemo right away. I was considering not doing chemo. I want to give a shout out to Chris Wark, who has a website called chrisbeatcancer.com. And
Chris beat cancer?
Chris beat cancer.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I don't want to give his testimony, but
No.
he battled and has been successful against his own cancer for several years, like 10 or 12 or 14 years now.
Wow.
And they had diagnosed mine as stage 3 and stomach cancer. So even though it was in the junction between my esophagus and my stomach, it was a little bit closer to my stomach than it was my esophagus, and that kind of cancer is aggressive. And so they said, you really need to start chemo right away. I considered not doing chemo and just following the Square One protocols, which is from Chris Wark. And so I adopted the Square One protocols immediately and I changed my diet. I went vegan. I started taking a lot of natural supplements and things. But I was continuing to lose weight. So the doctors were telling me you need to eat more, you need to eat meat. So I kind of went back and forth, and then eventually I decided I needed to eat meat to get the protein that I needed. But I was still following as much as I could the supplements and things like that. So by the time I went in for the surgery, the tumor had shrunk to the point where they really couldn't see it anymore. But the problem was that it was in my lymph nodes.
Oh.
So we decided to go ahead and proceed with the surgery. I did a total gastrectomy and lost more weight, and then went back in for more chemo.
Well, what is a gastrectomy?
Oh, well, that's a total removal of the stomach.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they took away a small portion of the bottom of my esophagus and the whole stomach, and then they brought the small intestines up and attached it to the bottom of my esophagus.
Wow.
And one thing I didn't know, which I get asked this question quite a bit, is, well, how do you eat or how do you digest? The food kind of goes into your stomach and it's held there, and the acids in your stomach break it down, but the absorption happens in the small intestines anyway. And I can't get any more technical than that, but so I am able to absorb nutrients. I just eat smaller portions and
More often?
More often. Yeah, it's time to go eat again.
Excuse me, and you have to chew it really well, right?
I chew very well, or I eat smoothies more than I used to, but the surgery was in August and this is now May, so I've had several months to recover, and I can actually eat kind of a child-sized portion meal now, a full meal, and whereas in the beginning it was just a couple of bites or a bite, and then I'd have to wait 5 minutes or 10 minutes and then take another bite, or I would get horribly sick. So I'm very grateful for the progress and eating, and I did make a couple of notes that I wanted to follow.
Mark and Laura, as she said, have been married 32 years, and they met in the Army. When Laura joined the Army, two people at the church that we went to were just stunned because she was doing some modeling, and one of them said, of course I didn't hear it, but she told me way back then, Laura, I thought I'd see, well, no, they did, they told me. One said, I thought I'd see Laura on the cover of Vogue someday, and the other one said, I thought Laura would be on the cover of Glamour someday. And but she made a very wise statement to me back then, and that was quite a while ago, because she was in her first couple of years out of high school, and she said, "Mom, I don't want a career that has about a 10-year lifespan that's all dependent on your looks." And I thought that was a very wise. Do you remember saying that?
I remember feeling that way, that I didn't, just want it to be all about the looks or whatever. But I was going to say that since I got my own cancer diagnosis, I have become a lot more aware of other people's struggles. And Romans 8:28 says, "For we know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love him, to those who are called according to his purpose." And I can honestly, truly say that I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I got cancer. I would never, ever wish it on anybody. I would never wish chemo on anybody. Thanks be to God, I didn't have to do radiation, but I did take chemo. I did lose all my hair. I was bald for some months. But I do believe that God has used it to make me so much more aware of just everything, more aware of what I put in my mouth, more aware of how I spend my time, more aware of other people's struggles, other people's pain, and it's not that I didn't care before, but I didn't really care, So that's been a blessing that's come out of this. So as far as where I am now, they did a PET scan at the end of all my treatment and found that the cancer had spread to my liver. So they had seen a spot on my liver, so they went in and biopsied that. And
was that painful?
I stayed awake for it. So I told the doctor that I didn't want any more anesthesia because if there was a spot on my liver and all the chemo damages your liver, that I would like to try and do the biopsy awake. And so I had to it was a little bit of pain, but not a whole lot. They did give me some local anesthesia in the area, but they take a big, huge needle and they go in up under your rib cage to where your liver is and then snip off some little portions of tissue in there.
Oh my goodness.
So the hard part was laying very still and not taking deep breaths. So they want you to breathe very shallow breaths so that the doctor is guiding the needle in through the help of an ultrasound image to make sure he's going to the right spot. And that came back that it was the adenocarcinoma had spread to my liver. So sadly, they moved me from the curative stack to the palliative stack. And I'm sure there's a lot of people watching this that have family members or friends that have had cancer or are dealing with it. And so you kind of know curative means they think we can cure you, and we have a goal to see you declared cancer-free. Palliative means we don't think we can cure you, but we're going to try and extend your life as long as we can. So it was a little disappointing when they said we've moved your file from curative to palliative, but they did start me on an immunotherapy drug now that is supposed to stimulate my body's own immune system to continue fighting it. But I have peace about it. I just told the Lord, I'll just live the life I have for you. And I felt like the Lord said, every day that I am to eat an apple, a banana, some broccoli, have my coffee enema, drink my liver detox tea, which is dandelion tea, and take my apricot seeds and my vitamin D and just trust him. So I don't take the apricot seeds or the vitamin D every day, but I do make sure that every day I eat an apple and a banana and some broccoli. And these are all foods that have good things that my body needs. And I feel great. I'm not in pain. I'm very thankful for that. If you heard me say coffee enema and you thought, ooh, really? Look it up. It's a real thing. It's a way to help your body detox the liver, help your liver detox itself. It releases the bile. And there's a Facebook support group for it that can teach you how to do that. But I also wanted to give one last shout out to an organization here in San Antonio called ThriveWell. I just became aware of them through word of mouth recently. Actually, Aunt Ceci told me about it because someone in her Bible study group is a diva or a member of ThriveWell. So their program for nutrition and exercise is called Divas and Dudes, or Diva and Dude. And so it's specifically for people that are battling cancer or are cancer survivors. And it's funded by people here in San Antonio, some big names and some companies like H-E-B and other people that sponsor it, and it's all free to people that are in their cancer journey.
Is there any way that we could get that phone number? Do they just get phone calls?
They have a website called thrivewell.org, thrivewell.org, THRIVEWELL.org. If you go there, submit a little contact form. Either Jose or somebody else will reach out, and you can meet with her and look at what they offer. So I've been doing line dancing at the YMCA with other divas, and
Well, can your dudes come? Like, can
So
Mark
you're
go
not
with
allowed
you?
to bring your plus one, because the program
Sure.
is specifically for people that are in their cancer journey, and it's designed for us to bond with each other and have that in common. But I just want to say thank you. If you happen to be watching this and you are one of the supporters of the Thrive Well program, I really appreciate what you're doing. And I also want to give a shout out to Caring Bridge. And now that's a
Yes.
website that I don't know who started it or when, but I know it's been around for more than a decade, maybe 2 decades as far as I know.
Could you show the symbol for it on your phone or not?
Yeah, I think I could. It's caringbridge.org.
It has a purple symbol, so it's very easy to find, for me to find among different apps. I don't like to have a lot of apps on my phone, but Caring Bridge I can find. And then you go on to it, and once you have to accept whoever wants to read your Caring Bridge. In other words, your privacy is protected.
Yeah, so my settings on mine are that it's private. You can start a Caring Bridge. It's a website designed for people that are in some kind of a health journey. And when I first got the cancer diagnosis and I told a few people and word spread, and I started getting text messages all day long from friends and family, wanting to let me know they heard the news and how was I doing and how are you feeling today, Laura? And I found that I was spending an inordinate amount of time answering personal text messages.
And they said they were praying for you?
Oh, yes. Tons of prayer going up for me that I know was my lifeline. I know it was my lifeline. Just the people that prayed for me. I decided to not go on Facebook or any other social media with my cancer. I decided to keep it just on the Caring Bridge. And so I let all my friends and family know, if you want to follow the journey, just join my Caring Bridge. And then in the beginning, I was posting updates every day because so much was happening so fast. And if you've been diagnosed with cancer, you get flooded with thoughts and advice and just so many suggestions and warnings and cautions and bad news. And they said, when they told me I had cancer, he said, if you do nothing, you have about 14 months to live. And
I never knew that.
Yeah, so I'm at 13 months now, so I do believe that I'm going to live a whole lot longer than that. And that was what he said was, if you do nothing. So that's, just kind of their best guess kind of thing. But Caring Bridge was a wonderful way for me to sort of document the journey, keep track of, what chemo drugs I was taking and other things that happened, and let people know, oh, this happened. Because back in June of last year, I almost died. And that was because they put me on a blood thinner called Eliquis, and that caused the ulcer to start hemorrhaging, and my hemoglobin was down to 4.3, and they rushed me into a little medical clinic. We were in Kansas, driving home from Iowa.
Yeah, it was not in San Antonio at BAMSI.
No.
Right.
Well, but they saved my life. This little clinic in Kansas
good.
saved my life because they right away hooked me up to a unit of blood through my port and another unit of blood through an IV, and then I regained consciousness, and because I was unconscious for all of that, and they said they'd never seen somebody with their hemoglobin that low.
Did you eventually get like 7 transfusions or 7
They gave
units
me
or something?
Yeah, 7 or 9 units of blood.
And how many do we have in our body? Generally, I know people
I
are
don't
different
know.
sizes. Well, I think you were down very low.
I was very low, yeah.
You might have been down to 4 in your whole body when you're supposed to have 8 or 9, depending on how your size, I guess.
Yeah. They check your blood count, and they call it your hemoglobin or hemo something or other, and it's supposed to be around 12 for.
We have 2 minutes.
We have 2 minutes left. Okay.
And 17
So
seconds.
anyway, I did eventually share on Facebook after several months of the journey, and had overwhelming support of all my family and friends, that they've been praying for me. And I am a firm believer in the power of prayer. Obviously, being Donna's daughter, I've grown up seeing prayer.
Hallelujah. Answers to prayer.
Answers to prayer.
And prayer.
In every situation. From driving around a parking lot, asking God to give us a front row parking spot, and boom, there it is, to just you name it, just all kinds of things.
I don't usually ask for close parking spots because I can walk, and I always say, Lord, lead me where you want me. Who knows? And sometimes I'm pretty far back, and it's fine with me because I always figure God has a divine appointment for me. And so
Well, back in the day when I was a kid,
I
and
did
there
pray for
wasn't,
that.
there wasn't, you were still allowed to park. You know how in front of the grocery store there's that sidewalk, and you used to be able to pull right up and point the front of your car into that sidewalk in front of the grocery store, and we always liked to try and get a front row spot, but that was out in California, and it was hot, and
But we all grow, and that's the thing. God wants us to grow, and I believe that Laura's healing is going to affect, this is what I've been praying, tens of thousands of people. And the other day, just maybe the day before yesterday, I started to pray this, and it just slipped in my spirit that her healing affect, I said tens of millions of people. And for we know, and she already quoted it, Romans 8:28, for we know that in all things God works together for good, or he works the good for those that love him and that are called according to his purpose. So it's time this time has gone by so quickly, but if you would like to write a letter to Laura, if they've got my address on there, because we didn't think about that, write it care of me, and or email, and I'll see she gets it. Thank you so much. God bless you.
bye-bye.
Bye.